You are now tuned in to the First and 10 podcast brought to you by OXP MEDIA. As I'm your host, Brandon Graham, and pleased to be joined by a special guest once again. Make sure you listen to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud, wherever, of course, you find your podcast needs. But as I said before, glad to be joined by a special guest, a recurring guest to the First and 10 podcast, Mr. Derek Bonecrusher Dennis. How are you doing, man?
What's good, man? What's good, man? I'm chilling, man. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing perfect, man. It's good to see. And one thing I'm really proud to see, your media kind of profile growing online, seeing how many people respect you. It's great, man. I'm glad that we got in touch with me. You gave me a chance to tap in with you again during this time because, of course, newly signed by the Calgary Stampeders for your third stint with the team. You said in a statement, you're glad to be home, back with the team that you had the most success in, and you're looking to build upon that. What kind of drew you to signing back with Calgary? And was this something that you knew it was something you wanted from, like, you manifested it for the past few years? You wanted this to happen for sure.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's the place where I built my career, like I've been telling everybody. And I see myself was on the track of being a Hall of Fame player, right? And always the greatest track to being in the Hall of Fame is having a lot of success and continuity in one spot where people always remember you, right? And Calgary just happens to be the place for me. So when I finally got the opportunity to get out of my Edmonton situation, I just reached out to them and said, hey, you know what, I'm interested in coming back. If the opportunity's there, let's have a conversation and see what we can work out. And things kind of just transpired in like a couple of days, was able to get it done. And just happy to be back in Calgary and be able to in the Stampeder organization again, and look forward to getting up there and having a successful 22 season.
There we go, man. And one thing too, when I was, I started with Sportsnet Fan 590. I got a chance to go to the Royal York, pretty much in Toronto, and I got to interview John Hufnagel because I was sent to a bunch of different CFL things, of course. And John Hufnagel, I remember asking the question to him, and him just like repeating and being like, "What?" And I was being really loud, but of course, I think he had an issue with the ear.
Yeah,
the hearing, yeah. But at the same time, really respectful after getting there. But one thing I noticed about that guy, and I play football as well too. Tough coach, and they just like he'll tell it how it is, of course. And he said in a statement too that he's excited to see you compete in the training camp. So just to break down, I know you said it before, but on the podcast, but the intensity in that organization, right, from Dickinson all the way down to Hufnagel, the demand for excellence, is this something that you think is a little bit different than other organizations out there? Like, what's your perspective with those two guys, especially?
Yeah, for sure. I always compared them to the New England Patriots from my time in the NFL, and it's the same atmosphere. So it's a family atmosphere. They care about their players. They want to see you succeed, but it's kind of when you walk through the door, it's football, it's about business, right? And they always want guys who are able to come in, kind of add to the culture, add to the environment, and care about the game, right? They want football players. And if you're in a place where everybody from the top down have that mindset, like, we just want guys who want to come in and be able to do their job, do it as hard as they can, and enjoy being in the place doing it, right? So it's a wonderful culture to be in. Anybody who's ever had the chance to play in Calgary understands the culture there is different than other places, right? I kind of found out the hard way because I started in Calgary. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, it'd probably be easy to transition somewhere else, and not realizing that every team and every personnel and every organization, they just don't operate the same way. So, and Calgary just operates in a way that just makes you feel like you're a professional, makes you feel like you're a valued piece of not just the team, but also the community. And it's a locker room full of great guys, man. I mean, when I joined it, it was some all-timers in there. I mean, Jawan Simpson, Brandon, my man B. Smith. We had, Jamal Wall was already there for a couple of years. You had, Charleston Hughes, like guys who are like all timers in the CFL, right? And it was a great culture to be a part of, and a great introductory to the CFL to get acclimated to the game. And I think that kind of helped me as a player, being able to be around some of those successful OGs who kind of taught me the game and taught me how to, basically be a consummate pro. And now I'm looking forward to the opportunity to return to Calgary and just be that guy for them, man. And be the older 30-plus-year-old vet who's been around the block and been successful, and being able to kind of exude some of those lessons and help the next generation be able to kind of keep it going.
Yeah, man. You're doing it everywhere when it comes to spaces on Twitter. Even you have a camp where you're helping out, different college players, so on and so. You're pushing there for the younger generation altogether. But when I look at you, I don't even see. I definitely a veteran, but definitely the way you are younger. You're just more of a cooler guy altogether. So I'm pretty sure those guys definitely vibe. But guys like Beggleton and I think Kamar Jordan was signed as well too. So every single year, you're just pumping more and more talent. I think the Calgary Stampeders, especially with you being inserted there with another piece of the O-line being signed today as well too, or today or yesterday as well too.
Yeah.
You're going to be right back into the thick of things, right? It's another year where you're kind of retooling there. So, but one thing I wanted to ask you is with that organization and everything you're doing, of course, online, from your development, podcast, so on and so forth. Does the organization really encourage you to kind of speak out? Because honestly, listen to your spaces that you had on Twitter, it was the best kind of spaces environment that I've actually listened to for sure when it comes to the CFL as someone that grew up kind of in the CFL mode, right? My dad kind of pushed us in, always watch the CFL, always being season ticket holders for the Argos. So is it the organization that encourages you to be yourself, or is it just more on yourself? You wanted to kind of build that for the CFL community?
It definitely does to a T. I mean, the professionalism always has to be there, and that's always something that you have to keep in mind. But the one thing I always did like about being in Calgary is that they never shied away from letting me be me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is just the way I look at it is for the league to be able to grow exponentially the way they want to, or to be treated in a certain light, you got to let your athletes be themselves, right? The personalities of the athletes and the folklore around the athletes is what draws in fans, honestly, because they want to see those guys who are a certain way off the field and be able to produce on the field, right? So when you got guys who can produce on the field and also have a personality off it, right? You think about some of the greatest athletes of all time, the Deion Sanders, the Kobe's, the Mikes, the Shaqs, the Charles Barkleys, like those are like, these are people who like get a chance you get to see their personality outside of their athletic prowess, right? And I think that's something that the CFL has an opportunity to capitalize on because it's a league of the people, right? You have access to players that you normally don't have in other leagues, and to be able to have that access and not utilize it to its full potential, I feel like it's kind of one of the shortcomings, right? So for me, in the sense of like being encouraged to be me, this is like me. I'm from New York, man. That's my mentality. Like I'm always gonna be myself, no matter where I go. I'm gonna be respectful, but I'm always gonna be me, right? So if you have problems with me, normally people who have problems with me, they just never got a chance to get to know me or talk to me or have a sit down and just see the person behind what they see for face value, right? So that's all I'm really trying to do, is just trying to find different ways to let my personality show, because I want people to look at me as more than just a guy who can play the game of football really well. I want you to see that I'm smart. I want you to see that I have charisma. I want you to see that I have style or fashion or whatever the case may be, right? I want you to see all those things that make me more than just a football player.
Absolutely, man. Well said. Well said. And hey, to be honest with you, you're in that echelon of real athletes that we want to hear from, right? Because we realize we're going to get some authentic spit from you, especially. Wanted to say, I wanted to ask you, especially, with the spaces and the conversation you were having. One big thing that stuck out with me, of course, you can talk about more diversity from an executive perspective when it comes to the owners in the league, which does need to change for this league to grow a lot more, and hopefully it does change in the coming years. But secondly, as you said, that there should be probably a network, right? There's an SEC network, there's a Big Ten network, there's Pac-12 network, so on and so forth, that grow exponentially, and it's great for more exposure to the game, and as well as and those are conferences in NCAA. And you played, of course, as you played in every league professionally in football, every league, exactly. And just gonna speak on having a CFL network here and being able to, because that's something that I think I would, especially when I'm doing something that I would love to be a part of, in the sense that someone that's from the culture but is still in a CFL network, or talking to people, because you get to learn how these athletes are, and it's great. So just to talk a little bit more about for having TSN as the kind of the owners, and how it needs to branch out a little bit more, because we can't have TSN be just the sole proprietors.
I think honestly it's more of TSN being the partner of the league. They have, the media rights to be able to broadcast like games and stuff, right? But if you look at these other leagues and how social media is trending to help in the popularity of these other leagues, right? everybody has a network, right? Something that they can put their own content on to like kind of build athlete profiles or coaches profiles or team profiles, or whatever the case may be, right? Something that they can pump out their own content to help elevate the name of the game, right? And I think what's been kind of sorely lacking is that the CFL has been relying on TSN to do some of that stuff, and they haven't done it at the clip or rate that they probably should. And then also, you only have CFL.com to get content for CFL players, right? They don't have an actual, like, TV network. They're not pumping out, like, high social media content. My example that I've always been using is look at what the Ottawa Red Blacks media team is doing with their team, right? Something that I think the league should be doing as a whole, right? It should be, you look at the NFL, right? You got Hard Knocks, you got NFL Total Access, you got all these different shows with former players and having their personality on TVs or media people just trying to tell every single possible story they can about the players, right? Look at, like, prime example, they got a great opportunity with the Canadian safety from SAS who's going to the Olympics for bobsledding, right? That should be something that you can create tons of content off to put out to kind of build that athlete profile, right? Aside from what TSN is going to put out for him, being an athlete, right? The CFL should also be capitalizing on some of that media content and not just relying on TSN to say, oh, he's a C. The focus, if you think about it, TSN is going to put out a special, and the focus is going to be more about him going to the Olympics and doing bobsled and how he got into bobsled, right? CFL make it a little, oh yeah, by the way, he's a Saskatchewan Rough Rider player, right? But the focus is not going to be on the league, right? Now, this is the league opportunity for the league to be able to take that focus and make it all about, he's a CFL player, drafted, you know what I'm saying? Like, tons of content, right? I think somebody who I thought was trying to do stuff like that, and because, things changed when she left, Brody Lawson used to do a lot of, like, when she used to do the off-season stuff and going to guys' towns and doing workouts with them and seeing how they, that's stuff that builds the league profile, right? And I think the pandemic and the league relying on TSN they got away from it. So my idea was, like, if you create a network to where, think about how many talented things football players could do outside of playing the game, right? You got guys in the league who rap and putting out songs. You got guys like me who are putting out their own podcast shows and content and things like that, right? Guys are trainers, guys are artists, painters, guys are, like, into all types of things, right? Different variety of stories that you can tell to build the athlete profile, which in turn builds the league's profile, which in turn brings in more fans, creates more money, right? At the end of the day, it's a business, right? Any business that's not trying to grow, in a sense, exponentially to create more assets is not a business that's going to be very successful, or they just comfortable with skating by, right? That's why I kind of put out that tweet was saying, I need the people to get out of the mindset that the CFL does not have money, because how does a league who consistently is telling you that they're losing money still able to find a way to just still exist and be around, right? If you're not making any money, there's no way your business is going to be around for a long time. It's just, you can't just take on millions and millions and years of millions and millions of dollars of loss and just still be able to function, right? The money has to come from somewhere. So my thing is, there needs to be more collaboration with the players on how, and the players have a lot of great ideas on how to build the league and build the brand, right? Because at the end of the day, if the league makes more money, we make more money. We make more money, it makes the league make even more money.
Product is
because,
better.
Again, yeah. Think about what the NFL players do, right? They're more in the community and putting money back into the community because it helps them be able to build their profile, and it also does help, build the league's profile. And it also does help, monetarily wise with tax things like that, right? So if you put more money in the athlete's pocket, that money is always going to get back to the community, man. You think about stuff like the CFL could do in the off season, like the NFL does with, like, Play 60, right? You want to build the CFL game and get more people playing the game. Why not find ways to take the players and put them everywhere they possibly could go in Canada and do youth camps or do, what I'm saying? The NFL has a program to where any player, they help them fund their own youth camps in their hometown, right? That's a way for the NFL to build its profile and get more youth into the game of football. That's stuff that the CFL just doesn't capitalize on, right? And you don't see it a lot in the CFL. You don't see a lot of guys doing football camps. You don't see a lot of guys doing charity work in the off season. No, you don't see a lot of guys being able to monetize their personality with endorsements and stuff like that, because it's kind of like they're still thinking 30, 40 years ago, and they're not thinking what's happening in today's world. So I'm just trying to get the conversation out there for people to understand that there's so much potential in what the CFL can be in the country of Canada. And that's why I was always opposed to CFL 2.0, because it's like, why are you looking for stuff outside of your own backyard if your backyard's not taken care of first? So that's where I'm at with it. I want to see the CFL grow. I want to see it get better, even if it doesn't benefit me. If 10, 15 years from now, I can see CFL players have a higher profile, more money, they're doing the things they do, really solidifying themselves as the second best league in the world for the game of football, which they should be, then yeah, I feel like I did my job, man. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I just want to find ways to, even if I can find ways myself, man. I mean, you see guys like, I think that's why a guy like Nick Lewis started his own like little broadcasting company called AO Sports or something like that, right? Because he understands that there's a lot of media potential for players to capitalize on that the league is just not taking advantage of. So that's stuff that, like, guys want to see the league grow and get better. It's just, I don't know why they just, but any business, you got to invest into it in order for it to grow and make money, right? If you're not putting money into it, then it's going to be very hard for you to get money out of it. So that's where my wheels always turn in that sense.
Yeah, it's wild. Like when Ottawa came out with kind of the Hard Knocks kind of training camp, getting like,
people
guys
are excited about that.
People are excited, but it's like, we're in 2022. How are we excited about this? Has been going on for years in in the States and so on, in the NFL, and so, it just blew my mind. I'm like, how is this the first team to kind of come up with these ideas? It's mind boggling, right? And you're right. The amount of athletes in the CFL that are doing all their own initiatives, their own things on media, so on and so forth. It needs to be broadcast. It needs to be put into a space where we can capitalize on it. Why sometimes in the past you had to wait for Cabby to interview certain guys to see exactly how the personalities are, so on. So right. I'm all for, and I love the fact you're starting the conversation, because yeah, the CFL is really dropping the ball, really fumbling the bag when it comes to monetizing as much as they can out of the athletes, because there's that's why a lot, when I tap in with a lot of these players, a lot of people are like, whoa, I didn't know about this guy. I didn't know about this. Like, there's so much potential when it comes to it. I'm just a small part of it too. So what I was going to say too, and kind of branching off to what you said about monetizing players' personalities, so on and so forth, guaranteed contracts, man. Like, it boggles my mind, because the turnover that we have each and every year, and I'll let you go very soon, but the turnover we have each and every year is, in a sense, they say is detrimental to the league, and I think it is. Do you think there's a way, because the CFL is making money? The more times that the commissioner is saying that the CFL is not making money, that's not true. They are making money. There's a way to have it in place. Do you think with different ownership in place that will change, or how do you think the CFL can monetize that and make sure that these
it's possible? Guaranteed contracts is something that should be explored, because continuity is something the fans are calling for, right? And again, the fans are the people who put the money into the product, right? So if you're able to keep guys around in certain cities for 2, 3, 4 years, even 5, it just helps build the league's profile, right? People start to take it more serious, right? And they'll look at it as something like, you won't have to worry about guys coming up there using it as a stopgap to try to get back to the NFL. I think that's normally how it is, especially with a lot of American guys. They're coming up there because I'm just trying to get film so I can get back to the NFL. That's really what they care about. So instead of guys taking it serious and saying, hey, you know what, I could build a real career for myself, which is essentially what it used to be back in the day. That's why you had guys like Warren Moon and the Doug Flutys and guys who played 7, 8 years before they even went back to the NFL, because they legit felt like they were making a career and making good money up there. And they was getting opportunities that they wasn't getting down south, right? And the NFL saw that and said, hey, we got to stop losing out on all these great players. We got to find a way to shift and get better to make them not want to think about going anywhere else but here, right? And that's something that needs to be explored on a deeper level. I'm kind of excited about to see like the direction of BC, them having a new minority owner and a fresh face and a different voice in those board meetings that's going to be able to kind of bring different ideas to help things grow. Because you want business owners who are in it to grow, right? You want business owners who are in it to maximize potential, right? That's essentially what the NFL has, is owners who know, if I put money into my product, it's going to grow for me, right? It's going to, that's why sports teams get those evaluations every day, and you see teams like the Yankees, who people always say Yankees don't win, but the Yankees dump so much money into everything that they do that they always winning. If
They're
they,
always winning.
whether the win
Facts.
losses are come in, they're always winning, right? So I mean, you see people who are not even from New York wearing Yankees gear or Yankees, and you see it everywhere. Yankees jerseys. You
It's
can
a
go,
brand. Mm-hmm.
you can go overseas to China and see people wearing Yankee stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like that's you want to get yourself to that point where, at least inside Canada, it can be that, right? You'll see
Mm-hmm.
kids wanting to wear CFL stuff over NFL stuff or other leagues, right? Because again, when you find a way to attach yourselves to the community and then build that profile, that's how you get to that point, right? So
Mm-hmm.
but I think, I think definitely, having um more faces in bigger places will help. Younger faces in bigger places too as well. I think the CFL does need an injection of youth more than anything.
100%.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's something I think that's why you're seeing like Ottawa's media team has a big injection of youth and guys who are up to date on what's trendy, what's going different, and trying to find
Mm-hmm.
ways to get that push, right. So I think the younger, if you could get some more, current business minded individuals. I mean, because
Mm-hmm.
CFL had the same owners for it's like since
Just like
forever.
before I was here.
Like,
Yeah, before
yeah,
over
these
30
dudes have been
years.
around for 30, 40, 50
Yeah.
years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and the good thing that you always saw, at least with the NFL, is like even though the owners stayed in the family, right? There's always go to like a younger generation who would take over at a certain point and be able to bring in new ideas and new feels and different
Mm-hmm.
direction to things, right? It wasn't wait until someone was 70, 80 and then be like, okay, you could take a team over. It'd be like, all right, I'm 70, I don't need to do this no more. Let me give it to the 30-year-old
Right.
and let him, kind of take it to new heights, right? So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that's
Okay.
something that the CFL could surely use, and yeah, and I of course get some more representation because most sports, especially in the game of football, leagues are going to be made majority of 70-80% black players,
Okay.
right? So the more representation we have, and not just in ownership, but in coaches or in board members or whatever the case may be, having that representation is going to be key because um, we have a uniqueness in our league of having so many different elements make up one unit, right? I think that's the beautiful thing about the CFL that they could capitalize on, is because our dynamic feels more like what the actual real world is, right? Think about a city like Toronto, who's such a big melting pot and different personalities and different demographics, that if you could find ways to have representation of all these demographics, and I think that's what they're doing, they're just not going about it the right way, then it'll grow the profile of the league, right? And I think that's the fans that they're sorely missing the target. It's not the diehards you have to worry about. It's the casuals. It's the people who can, there's people who don't watch football, but they can tell you who Tom Brady is, right? They don't have to watch him play to tell you who he is, right? They don't have to watch basketball to tell you who LeBron James is or who, you know what I'm saying? Like, you want the casual people who occasionally come across it, go to a bar, hey, it's on TV, watching it. Hey, that was fun to watch. Let me watch it again, right? There's been so many times where I had to walk into bars, and I've been in Canada and say, hey, could you put the CFL game on the TV? And yeah, I don't even know if we get that channel. Like, that's the
Right.
stuff that you gotta
Right.
be able to come back and overcome. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's I think representation and being able to put your players out there more and be able to just market, brand, and use what's available to you to a higher degree, I think is going to help in the long run.
Absolutely, man, and you're totally right about just the casuals, right? Like, once again, I being in part of the Toronto Argonauts media, in a sense, be going to all the Zoom meetings, so on and so forth. Like, there's not many people that look like us, right, in that area, or especially as a casuals. That needs to be tapped into in Toronto, especially from the organization standpoint. They're
Yeah,
trying, but it needs to grow, and I've seen it from, once again, grew up CFL guy, right?
and
So
you
it's
got to think
different for
about
me.
it. The
Yeah,
the demographic of Toronto is made up of what 60-70% of immigrants, people who
everything.
are not
Yeah,
even from here. To
that's
be
what I'm
able to
saying.
say like, oh, we have a great. That's why the Toronto fan base gets a lot of flack, but it's because the majority of the fans there are going to be people who don't
Come
come
from
from Canada, come from somewhere else, right? That's why you see
facts.
a team like the Toronto Raptors get so much love and
Mm-hmm.
so much embrace, is because they make it a point to get out into the communities and be able to
Mm-hmm.
impact those casuals, right?
Right, right.
So I think if you find ways to impact those people, you'll get more
Yeah,
people in the stands. You'll get more more money, and everything will be what it needs to be.
Absolutely. So one question I want to ask you before you get out of here, because I know you're a little busy.
Yeah.
Great weekend of NFL football we saw last weekend, probably the best of all time. But I wanted to ask you, OT rules. Are you more of a fan of the OT rules in the CFL or when it comes to college Division I football? Like, which one did you believe was more impactful and a fair shot for both teams?
I think they're all unique in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say one rule is better than another. Like, CFL games are exciting and they're fun to me because you're never out of it, and that's the beauty of it. That a lot of people don't get to understand is that my example is 2016 in Calgary. We were playing BC. We were down 20-something points in the fourth quarter, and we were able to come back and win that game in overtime, right? So you get the ability to see those types of things, right? And I think most of it is just coming from the fact that it was a great NFL game last weekend between Kansas City and Buffalo, and people just didn't want it to end. They wanted it to end with more drama, right? So the idea of, again, this is entertainment. So you want to make sure you're entertaining your fans, right? You don't want them leaving saying, I feel like I was gypped or I was robbed, or, you know what I'm saying? And most people are not going to walk away from that game saying that, but some people are for some reason. That's why you're seeing the conversation with the OT rules. So I think honestly, I mean, you can make an argument case for like either way, right? I think if the game was able to kind of go down to a shootout, kind of like what hockey does with their overtime, where it's like, all right, 4 guys, it's a shootout. Whoever scores the most out of those 4 times, that's going to be the winner type of thing, right? That's kind of where the excitement comes in that aspect. So college rules, overtime rules were fun. CFL overtime rules are fun. I think NFL overtime rules are fun, right? I mean, 7 times out of 10, no one's going to score a touchdown on the opening drive. That's just you got to take into account. All right, that's bad defense. All right, they gave them that opportunity, but it would have been even more fun to be able for them to score a touchdown and then give the ball to Buffalo and see if they could do it. Kind of what you saw what happened to us against Ottawa in the 2016 Grey Cup, right? That's just kind of added more lore and fun to the game, with knowing that both teams was going to get a shot to win the game, and whoever performed it was going to walk out of it. So I think it would make the NFL game more fun to see those rules, but I mean, do I think it's dramatic and needs to change? No, I don't think that.
You don't think that? You speak about 2016. To be honest, and a lot of players in the NFL and CFL are saying like it's the wear and tear of the body after an OT. Do you find too much credence in that, or is that just people that just don't want to see because you're in your adrenaline's riding high, you're playing. It's football.
It's football, exactly. Man. It's football. Like especially in overtime, you're not thinking about you just playing 4 quarters and being tired or sore, right? At the end of the day, if you are, then that's just the part of football where you're not mentally tough enough to go get what you want, right? Because at the end of the day, in moments that's going to build your what's your lore, like this thing that makes you like immortal in the sporting realm, right?
Legacy,
in those moments, you got to be mentally strong enough to be like, I'm going to go get it done, right? Because I'm a firm believer in the body's going to do whatever the mind tells it to do, right? So if you're mentally telling yourself you're tired, your body's going to be tired. If you're mentally telling yourself like, hey, this is it. This is the last forever. If I give it my all, I got a chance to be remembered forever type of thing, right? That's kind of where I come from with it. So I don't think that's it. I think that's more of an excuse as opposed to because I mean, think about it. With Michael Jordan's, a lot of his lore comes from him playing that flu game, right? Him being sick and going out there and dropping 60 points, even though he felt horrible, right? That's the stuff that kind of builds your lore as an athlete, right? And that's all mental toughness, man. Because everybody's body is gonna, your body is gonna go to a certain brink, right? But if you're mentally able to kind of push yourself to do just one more rep, so I always tell you in football, it's just one more. If you can get just one more, that's going to mentally prepare you and your body to be able to just push that last ounce of energy out right when you need it, right? So, I ain't a believer in that.
That's definitely an excuse then. I'll take that from there. And I believe the same thing. And I think MJ was hungover. That's a hot take right there. Anyways,
he was definitely hungover. It wasn't food. He was definitely hungover.
As long as you know that. All right, I just want to, before we get out of here, I just want to ask you, with these teams in the NFL and the AFC, NFC Championship, which team do you believe will get to the Super Bowl? And, of course, which team do you think will win? Of course, we have the Kansas City Chiefs against the Bengals, and then we have the 49ers.
I mean, the logical answer to say would be Kansas City, LA. I think LA is going to beat San Francisco just because in sport, it's very hard to beat a team 3 times or 4 times in one year, right? You always see when you get to the playoffs, if a team was dominating the team in the regular season, everybody assumes like, okay, they're going to do it again in the playoffs. The playoffs is a whole different animal, right? And I think LA is like they're clicking right now. They're playing really great football. So I think too. Also, you got to take in the Hollywood effect. You think the NFL is not going to take the advantage of having LA play a home Super Bowl in a
Hey, you
brand
said
new
it was
stadium?
rigged. Facts. You said it was probably okay.
Come on, you
Okay.
think they're not going to take advantage of all that press and money that they could get?
No chance. Those
No
wrestlers throwing
chance.
flag. Yes.
No chance, man. So San Fran is they got it harder than anybody because they're playing the conference championship now, and then you got a chance to come back the next week and play the Super Bowl. Come on, man. But I would, if I had to pick, I would say Kansas City, LA, but I am a little bit leaning towards Cincinnati just because Cincinnati, Joe Burrow's he's playing great football right now, man. And the thing I like about Cincinnati is they play great team ball. Like they got a solid defense that they don't get enough credit for. I think, and their defensive front seven is tough, right? And you've seen with Kansas City, especially early in the year, my thing is if Kansas City is not having some type of run game incorporated into it to where they can keep you off balance, then you kind of eliminate Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, right? And you've seen people do it, right? So the only thing is they're taking advantage of teams they're finding ways to run the ball with all the gimmicky wide receiver runs, short dumps, let guys get in space, make plays happen, right? You take that away, now they become one-dimensional, and now you're going to force Patrick to start thinking he has to play hero ball. And when you get him thinking he has to play hero ball, then you got a chance to beat the Chiefs. So I think Cincinnati can find a way to get them to that point. They got a shot to win the game. But, I mean, logical answer, I'm going to say Kansas City, LA.
Okay, there we go. You got probably Kansas City winning the Super Bowl, but that's something that's neither here nor there. That's to get to that point first. But I know I keep saying last thing, but I love chatting with you. Of course, do want to ask you with your little son, are you pushing him into football? Your kids, are you actually pushing him? I see your boy growing. You actually they give him some tips here and there on football. Is that something you plan on doing?
Honestly, I'm just letting them be a kid. I'm not really on that. Some parents like to pigeonhole their kids for certain futures early on. I just want him to be a kid. I mean, naturally, I think he may gravitate to football because his dad plays it, and his uncle's in the NFL too as well. So he got 2 male role models in his life that are playing pro football at a high level. It would only be natural for him to gravitate to it, right? I mean, I see him sometimes if he sees pictures of me or videos or like old highlights, and he goes, Daddy, when I grow big like you, I'm gonna do that too. I'm gonna play football too, right? So I don't push him towards it. I mean, if I had to pick what I wanted him to do, I would want him to play basketball, baseball. Okay. But if he chooses the game of football, he chooses the game of football. But I mean, my real love is basketball. Basketball is my real my passionate sport. I grew playing with my whole life. So I would love him to be a ball player. But I also, I like baseball too, man. I look at my son and I think he could be the next Aaron Judge type of thing in my mind. So I'm just gonna let him be a kid. I'm gonna let him pick for himself and whatever he gravitates to. When we get to that point of middle school and he's telling me, hey Dad, as soon as he tells me, hey Dad, I want to be a pro, whatever. All right, boom. That's what we got to do. Let's get to it.
We got to do. That's awesome, man. He's a great role model, and you obviously to bring him up there. And I'm gonna say, Bing Bong. The Knicks are mid. That's what I want to say to you.
Let's go, Bing Bong, baby.
All right, man. Hey, I want to say thank you, Derek Dennis. Of course, we'll talk very, very soon. This is Derek Dennis, the Calgary Stampeder. Does way more than that. You can find him on Twitter at 6 Bonecrusher. Bonecrusher, of course, where they can find you on Twitter, on Instagram.
Bonecrusher 3 on Twitter, 6 Bonecrusher 4 on Instagram. Yeah, that's where you find me at mostly.
Okay, there we go. I appreciate everything, right? Dropping some gems. It's a great episode. This is the First and 10 podcast. Keep balling.